All right, we are live. I'm here with Manny. We just recently connected on Twitter, and I was like, man, we got to get on here and talk about this Daron Payne contract extension. So super excited to talk about that. Let's talk about what just happened. So Daron Payne was recently given the franchise tag by the Washington Commanders, and we just heard about an hour ago that Daron Payne became the highest paid defensive tackle not named Aaron Donald. So he reached a contract extension of 4 years, $90 million, including $60 million guaranteed. And if you look at the average salaries, that's putting him at $22.5 million. So like I said, above, only below Aaron Donald. Donald's at 31.6. DeForest Buckner's at 21. He's third. And then Daron Payne is 22.5. And Daron Payne, for those Commanders fans out there, had a career year this year. He finally, the first round pick, a few years back, the 13th pick in the 2018 draft. He's 25 years old, 320 pounds, 6'3". This was his fifth season playing on the fifth-year option, but he broke out. He had 11.5 sacks. His highest before that was 5 sacks. Had 64 total tackles, which was a career high. So as you can see, he had a huge year. And I know, Manny, you are a big Commanders fan. So what is your thoughts? This is a big contract. This is a big extension that they just the Commanders just gave him. So what are your thoughts about this?
Man, first of all, Steve, thank you so much for connecting. Thank you so much for getting me on the show. I'm glad to be here. This contract is huge. People don't realize how big of a contract this is. Ron Rivera was getting so much scrutiny. Oh, Ron Rivera's trash. Ron Rivera's this. What is he doing? Franchise tag? Oh, then you had people who did not want Daron Payne back because they're worried about money, right? You're worried about, oh, Jonathan Allen just got paid 2 years ago. Same kind of situation. Ron Rivera's a guy that says, hey, play out your contract, and I'm going to reward you when it's time. So for them to go ahead and give Daron Payne, matter of fact, while I was sleeping, Daron Payne was the first franchise tag guy. At 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., he got that franchise tag, and what that showed me was, you know what? These guys are serious. And then immediately they released Carson Wentz and then released, what's his name, Bobby McCain. So these moves were all to set up this, and then now you get this deal done before the tampering period. To now you can go ahead and sign other guys, and then that cap number drops or increases so you can do some other things. Daron Payne, he's a dog, man. Defensive tackles don't get a lot of sacks. There's not a lot of defensive tackles getting double-digit sacks. And this guy was able to come out there and get 11.5. So he shows you he's the most athletic. So we have a guy in Jonathan Allen that people think is possibly better than Daron Payne. But you always pay the younger guy. You always pay for that upside. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited. We get to keep this defensive line together at least for maybe 1-2 more years. Montez Sweat, same kind of scenario. Chase Young. And after Sweat is young. So it's like you have to continue to pay the guys that you draft, right? Washington's been a terrible franchise for years. So how do you get these top-tier guys? You got to draft them, and then you pay them because of Daron Payne is not coming to Washington. We're not Buffalo like you guys. You guys are now a great team, and you guys are getting all the marquee names. We're not there yet, right? So I'm excited for this, man. And for those who play IDP, I know you play IDP. I play IDP.
I do. Yep.
The reason why I wasn't in on Daron Payne initially, maybe 2 years ago in IDP, I knew who he was. I know what he brings to the table. But at the same time, we had Tim Settle, we had Matt Idonis, and these are all defensive tackles. So at that point in time, he wasn't getting these numbers because of the snaps and the way that things were structured. But then coming into a year ago, I was all in on Daron Payne because I knew there'll be a point in time when he has to play for that contract. And for those who listened and hopped in last year or when it announced, I mean, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for this move right here.
Yeah, I think it's a big move for them. And like you said, when you draft that talent, you have to pay them to keep them in-house. And when it comes to Payne, like you said, I think players notice when their contract is up and they want to get paid. Now, I don't think it's like you said, you had Ioannidis You had Tim Settle. So you had some other guys in there that were rotating in with him, so he wasn't getting that opportunity. Obviously, he's a part of a really talented defensive line with Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, Montez Sweat. So he definitely benefits from being with that group. And we know that defensive line, you have to there's got to be pressure on the quarterback. If there's no pressure, that quarterback can just sit in the pocket and do whatever he wants. You're not going to win games. So you need those pass rushers, and that interior pass rush that Daron Payne causes with Jonathan Allen, it causes problems for other teams. So I think it makes sense for them to make this signing. And not to mention, you guys recently traded and, cut Carson Wentz. Right now, you got a void at quarterback. And right now, maybe Sam Howell is that option. I don't know. But regardless, they don't have a lot of money tied up in that position, which affords the Commanders to go ahead and sign a guy like Daron Payne, keep these guys in-house so they can keep this defensive line intact.
Right. Well, now, Steve, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Tell me fact or cap on this statement right here.
Okay.
A sack coming from the defensive tackle is worth 2 sacks compared to a guy that's on the edge. Fact or cap?
Yeah, I'd probably say fact. Honestly, I'd dig even deeper. Whereas, especially when it comes to your traditional IDP leagues, but even just looking at stats, you'd really want to look at stats, QB hits, and hurries, right? You're not seeing those type of numbers a lot. And I don't know offhand what his QB hits were, but I presume they're high because it's any sacks and then additional to that. So to me, it's like edge rushers, they get the sacks, but really, like even beyond that, though, you really should look into those hurries and QB hit numbers because the sacks only tell part of the story.
Right. And from the interior, it's just something about when you collapse that interior. And then now, also, he's setting other people up for sacks as well. When you collapse that interior, now you have to get outside, and guess what? You got Montez waiting for you. Guess what? Other side, you have Chase Young. So I just love the interior pass rush. And not to forget, Jonathan Allen is just as good, if not better. So you have 2 guys. Jonathan Allen he wants to get into the, okay. All right. Okay. All right. So Jonathan Allen pretty much did the exact same thing that Payne was able to do this year.
Right.
He's excited about the signing. But
I don't blame him.
So when you have 2 guys that are getting after it like this from the interior, no other team in the league can boast of that.
No.
All right, kisses. All right. Yes, sir.
He probably would have gotten that contract had he was allowed to go to the market. And you're right. Jonathan Allen is getting paid on average $18 million a year, and now Daron Payne on average is getting paid $22.5 million per year. So the Commanders, by large, compared to every other team, is investing in that interior pass rush position. Now, one thing I'm curious your thoughts. So, as a Commanders fan, so I anticipated, and for some reason the name is escaping me. I should know it. Oh no, I know it. So last year in the draft, okay, with Daron Payne being a free agent, I thought the Commanders were drafting Fedarian Mathis out of Alabama to eventually replace Payne because they weren't going to pay Payne and Fedarian Mathis, which he didn't really get that many snaps. He was more of a rotational guy, I want to say, and he got hurt, right? Yeah. So I thought that they were going to invest in him to eventually he would replace Payne. So now that Payne had the career year he did, which him getting 11.5 sacks, I feel like the Commanders front office was like, we can't let this guy go. Did you agree with me? Did you think that Mathis, that was the plan as well?
So here's the thing. Mathis wasn't necessarily the plan. Mathis was pretty much insurance. Not only that, the Commanders play a lot of 5-2 at times, where they have 5 defensive linemen. So he was
right.
He was really coming in to play the Tim Settle role and the big Matt Idonis role. That was really what it was. But you also have to have insurance as well. So it was kind of like preparing both ways. If Daron Payne says no, I don't want to be here, you can't make him be here. You can tag him all you want, but you can't make him be here. So he wanted to be here. He wanted to get his bread. He's been saying, hey, he's been wearing colors like green, and he's throwing out little shots like that. He wasn't disrespected. Ron Rivera is a guy, like I said earlier, he makes you go and earn that contract. Ron Rivera says, hey, if you do everything I tell you to do, you are going to get your bread, right? So what essentially ended up happening was you draft this guy. Not only does it solidify you, you now don't have to pay Payne. Settle. You don't. Then it's a cheaper contract. So I looked at it more so as you're letting these two interior guys go. You need depth anyways, right? And then if Payne happens to leave, guess what? Somebody in the pipeline, and then you still have to bring in two other guys. So it just kind of worked out well. And then I'm going to give you a bonus. The Dallas Cowboys dropped a guy by the name of, John Ridgeway. John Ridgeway is another guy, defensive tackle. He's a dog. So really, what we lost in those two interior guys, we gained in Ridgeway, who was a 5th-round pick dropped by Dallas. They tried to sneak him onto the practice squad, and we swooped in and grabbed him. So then it was just double security. But I trust in Ron Rivera. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. Jonathan Allen. It was, is he leaving? Oh, we're not going to pay all this money for look, when it's time to pay the next guy, which is most likely Montez Sweat, they're most likely going to 5th year him, right? And then if he balls out, he gets paid. It's as simple as it goes. If for some reason Chase Young just bottoms out and doesn't really ball out, he's gone. So you get paid off of your performance. And that's how Ron Rivera has always been. And that's part of the reason why Trent Williams is no longer here in D.C. When he got here, he says, hey, play out your contract. I'm going to take care of you. Trent Williams says, I want my money now. Quinton Dunbar said, I want my money now. So if you listen to Ron Rivera, he's real easy to work with. So I kind of had faith in this because at the end of the day, when you have a premier talent like this, you sign them. If you have to move them later, like Jalen Ramsey was moved today, then you do what you got to do. But you got to continue to collect assets. You can't be going backwards in terms of assets. So I love the move. For Darian Mathis was pretty much insurance for me at that point.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I, Tim Settle came over to the Bills. I think he had a lot of potential. I really was hoping that he would do more with this year. I don't think he really he was just kind of okay. And then Ioannidis, go ahead.
Let me tell you something, man. Tim Settle is a fine player, but at the end of the day, for the Commanders fans that are listening right now, you guys know what I'll always say. Tim Settle is a role player. He's a Jag. He's just another guy. There's nothing wrong with loving these Jags, but at the end of the day, he wasn't special. Fans were pissed off. Oh, we just lost Tim Settle. Look, we know where we drafted him. We know what he can do. He's a fine player, but he's not a starter. Okay? And there's a reason why he didn't start in Buffalo, right? It was like a rotational thing, right?
No, rotation, yep.
Exactly. And then the same thing with Matt Ioannidis. Now, he did have numbers. He had a year when he had up to maybe 8 sacks or so. I can't think of the exact number right now. And they're thinking,
I'll check it.
The next coming of, he also told people, Matt Ioannidis is a Jag. He's just another guy. But you know what? It's frowned upon when you're talking about players that were productive in a system. You know a dog when you see one. And Daron Payne is the reason why he has a draft capital, drafted in the 1st round. He was drafted in the 1st round for a reason, opposed to a guy like Matt Ioannidis or even a guy like Tim Settle, 4th, 5th round picks. So it just is what it is. So fans are always so emotionally attached to players, especially role players. But yeah, I knew that Tim Settle was a decent role player, and I was not expecting much from him in Buffalo, other than him coming in and giving you guys a spark, giving you guys, insurance policy just in case the starter does get hurt. So yeah, I totally feel your pain on the Tim Settle thing.
Yeah, Ioannidis ended up. You're right. He got 8.5 sacks. That was back in 2019. That was his career year. He really hadn't really done much outside of that. And you're right. He was a former 5th round pick by the Commanders. So you're right. I mean, that investment with Daron Payne is different. And I think that's why. So you as a Commanders fan, you are supporting the move. You are.
Yeah, I love it.
It was that. Now, what about the contract? Do you feel like it? I mean, that's about 66.5. I want to say, 666%, 667%. guaranteed, and which is a little bit higher guaranteed, but that doesn't bother you.
But look, here's the thing. He's 25 years old, right? Had a career year. He's the fastest. Like, matter of fact, he has the highest upside on that entire defensive line, including the Chase Young. And I love Chase Young. He just hasn't been healthy. Now, what I would say is this contract that he got right now is a steal. The market will be reset. That's why the Commanders acted fast to be the first person to franchise tag a player, to be the first person to release players and to create space in order to even franchise tag this guy. So it was all corresponding moves. It meant that they were serious. And to get this deal done now, I don't think there's any other franchise tag guy that has gotten their deal done already. No. So the plan was always to keep him. And I'm telling you, it's cheaper to do it early than to do it later. Getting that Jonathan Allen a deal done when we did was beautiful. 18 million now, 22.5 million. Everybody's saying, "Oh, it's a big number. It's a big number." Watch the numbers that happen in the next year or two, and we'll be looking back at this laughing, saying, "Man, we stole with this deal." So I'm excited for it. Yes, 22.5 is kind of like, oh my gosh. But like you said earlier, we don't have a quarterback that's taking up the money. So the plan is to go into the season with Sam Howell and a cheap vet. Yeah. And you keep costs down. You keep this group together. And if Sam Howell doesn't work, guess what? You draft another guy next year and you just continue to build.
And for those of you who are watching live, go ahead and put in your comments below. What are your thoughts of the Daron Payne signing? Real quick, as far as the other defensive linemen, now that they've allocated the money that they have to Payne and Allen, obviously Chase Young took a long time to get recovery. He never really, I don't even know if he played a game or two. You would know that. Right. I think he played maybe one game or two.
2 or 3 games.
2 or 3 games.
It was like, man, he was just like a rotational guy. He didn't start any of the games. He came in just to kind of, just get some snaps in. I would have said leave him out, but they were pushing for the playoffs, and they just brought him in. He didn't look great, but I encouraged him. I mean, I was encouraged by him at least trying to play. He wanted to be out there, but the doctors brought him out. I think he played 2 or 3 games at the end of the year, minimum to no impact. So this is a big year coming for Chase Young. It's like do or die going into year 3 or 4. Might be year 4.
This would be year 4. So they have to decide whether or not to give him the fifth year option this year, right? Did they already give the one to Sweat? I know you meant because he's going into his. I can't remember.
No, I think Montez Sweat, just because him and Chase are 1 year apart. So if Chase is going into his 4th year, that means this is Sweat's 5th year. So I want to say,
they gave the 5th year to Sweat. He's playing on the 5th year this year.
Yep.
And then he's a free agent next year. And then Young, they got to make the decision of whether or not they're going to do the 5th year.
They're going to pick it up. They're going to pick it up because you don't want to be worried about paying Sweat and Young next year. So they usually pick up that 5th year option that gives them a year to kind of assess everything. Let's say that Montez Sweat has another decent year. He's solid. He could be really, really good, but I don't know, man. The line is so stacked that I can't even really see what he can do. But I've seen him operate as a number 1 defensive end, and he's balled out every single time. But the thing is, he gives me a Preston Smith type of vibe. If you are familiar with Preston Smith,
way back ago. Yep.
Yeah, he was like good, bad season. Good, bad season. Look it up. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. With Montez Sweat, he's had decent seasons, but nothing that really commands top-tier dollars, right? So if I'm looking at Montez Sweat and if we can lock him in for a $16 million a year type deal, that's beautiful. But knowing him, he'll like to just play out this contract and bet on himself. So I like Sweat, but it's going to be interesting. At the end of the day, they worry about each player year by year. I think they're going to pay Sweat. I think he balls out next year. I think Sweat goes crazy. And then at the end of the day, if Chase Young doesn't pan out, then it just didn't pan out. You don't have to pay him. But you have to pay what you see with your eyes and all that potential stuff. He might be. Miss me with all of that because it's never guaranteed. So you pay the guy that you see and you kind of get like traits or you see things that could continue to happen. You pay Jonathan Allen, he continued to ball. Now you've paid this guy in Payne. He's going to continue to get better and better and better. And if Montez Sweat has a career year or a decent year or a year that's better than all the years he's been there, he should get a nice contract. But if he's like the same level of player that he's been, we might be able to get Montez Sweat at a steal. So I'm not worried about them keeping this line together. They just kind of take a year by year, and you get paid off of your performance. You get paid off of how you play. So I kind of like that. So I'm excited for it, and hopefully they just keep that going.
Yeah, honestly, I was just looking. Payne has definitely been. Oh, can you hear me?
Oh man, this phone call messed me up. Let me try to go out and come back in.
Okay. So I have been with Manny. We've been talking about the Washington Commanders signing Daron Payne. If you haven't seen the news, he signed a breaking contract extension. I believe it was 4 years, $90 million, with $60 million guaranteed off the top of my head. I'm just going to confirm that here. Yeah, 4 years, $90 million, $60 million guaranteed. We got Manny back. Manny, you're back.
I'm back.
All right. No, you are good. So I was just saying, Montez Sweat, he has been actually very consistent over this past 4 years. He's had 8 sacks, 5 sacks, 9 sacks, and then 7 sacks in his rookie year. And honestly, I was kind of surprised because obviously Chase Young's got that big name because he was drafted number 2 overall back in 2020. But his rookie year, he had 7.5. Then the year before that, he played in 9 games, obviously towards ACL, only had 1.5 sacks, and then really came back in 3 games, but it was rotational. He really didn't do much. So crazy is that Sweat's actually been a stronger performer for you guys than Young.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and break that down. It's deeper than that. So when you look at Chase Young, right, his upside is the Bosa's, right? I mean, he played with
He played.
So that's the upside, and that's why he was selected number 2 overall. That's why he was selected over a guy like Tua and over a guy like Justin Herbert. So they have to eat that. So you've invested, you're going to give him that fifth-year option, no matter what, right? Now, the reason why I said this year is the make it break it for Chase, well, this year, next year. If he doesn't ball out to that kind of potential, he's gone, or he's going to sign a 1-year prove-it deal, kind of like that Clowney. So he can be Clowney or he can be Bosa. So we're kind of hoping that this guy ends up being Bosa. But look at the rookie season. 7.5 sacks. It was more than the sack numbers. He should have had 15 sacks. That's how great he played. He won Rookie of the Year. And, I mean, he was the sole reason why they made the playoffs, even with a terrible record. He was that dude. Going into the next season, the league kind of figured him out a little bit. He had like some boneheaded plays. But the thing with Chase Young was that he hasn't really learned some counter moves. It's like his pass rush moves became kind of basic. Now it's like, okay, everybody knows that you're fast. Everybody knows that you're strong. What are your counter moves when this move or that move doesn't work? Now, Montez Sweat was able to eat a lot off of Chase. Chase will go out there and he's going against the best tackle every single game. So then you have Sweat as a number 2. So it's a lot deeper than that. And if you look at what he did this past season, this was the first season that Montez Sweat really showed us who he is, or who he can be. Right? Is he a true number 1 defensive pass rusher? I don't know, because even this year without Chase, the dudes that were really doing it this year, for the most part, was Payne and Allen. They were going back and forth for lead, and then Sweat would come up he wasn't really consistent. If you look at how those sacks came, where those sacks came, the slow start to the season. So it's deeper than that. But one thing that I can say about Sweat is, yes, he is consistent, but is he that true dog? Does he really deserve that $20+ million a year? Time will tell. That's why this year is important, not just for Sweat, but also for Chase Young. It's going to be impossible for all these guys to all have 10 sacks each. The Eagles are able to do it, but it's more than the sack numbers. If your eyes work, right, and you kind of watch the games and you kind of see how they're attacking, if you're attacking and you're still not getting the numbers, like you said, QB hits, pressures, hurries, all those things count. All those things are awesome stats. So I'm really watching Montez Sweat really, really tough, because it could be one of those insurance type policies. Are you signing him because we don't know what Chase is going to be? But at the end of the day, you have to pay who you see now and not what Chase can be later. Because it's real dicey. They all were first round picks, so you have to invest and continue to build. But yeah, Sweat is really a good player, but I don't know if he's just that kind of guy. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying, and it'll be really telling to see what the Washington Commanders front office does with Chase Young. So like if they accept or decline his 5th year option, it'll be very telling as to what they're thinking about Chase Young. I think I agree with you. I think there's just too much potential that they'll accept it. But their team, medical doctors, they know more about what is his knee like and will he be able to come back to his old form. So that I mean, we'll probably know whether they want to invest in him long term by deciding on that 5th year option. Honestly,
and I've also said I don't mind everybody on the defensive line getting paid. I don't mind. Nobody in the league has ever done that, but I don't mind 4 guys getting the bulk of the money. You know why? They're the heart and soul of this defense. They built this team a certain way. You cannot pay your guys and say, "Oh, what about this position?" Hey, you gotta look. If the Chiefs can do certain things in terms of paying 2 or 3 guys, right? And they kind of build through the draft, get these rookies, and you have to balance as a GM. If I was a GM, I'm going to make my strengths even stronger. Bringing in a Mathis, just in case something happens to one of you guys. Even this year, I would still draft another pass rusher to add to the fold.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't make your you don't say, oh, we're good at defense. Makes no sense. So you have to continue to make your strengths, and that's your identity. When you come and play Washington, they're going to attack the run, they're going to attack the quarterback, and they attack the run in pursuit towards that quarterback. So that's how they play. So why not continue to build that identity? Anybody that you're bringing in free agent-wise or even draft-wise, that when you come here, Jonathan Allen will smack you if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Like, that's the guy that keeps people accountable. So I love what they're building. Pay everybody, and then if you can't pay a Cole Holcomb, who was an IDP,
linebacker,
but if you gotta let him go, you let him go. There's linebackers all over the place. There's linebackers getting cut, right? That means you can plug in anybody and they can gobble up some tackles, right? Well, the defensive line is good. It makes any linebacker look okay to decent, right? You've invested in Jamin Davis, so that's why I'm looking at it like, you know what? Pay everybody. That's a premier talent. Then you worry about everything else later. Obviously, Cam Curl, you got to go ahead and lock that in. But outside of that, Curtis Samuel, he becomes expendable. You have De'Ami Brown. You have the draft. So if I'm a GM, there's ways that you can tweak this thing. You cannot be paying everybody. You have to mirror your contracts with draft picks. You just have to. If you have to trade back to continue to acquire depth to kind of fill your team, you do that. But you have to pay your superstars. Quick basketball reference. Imagine the Lakers saying, "Oh, we're not going to pay Kobe or Shaq because they get paid too much." Makes no sense, right? You pay your premier guys, and then you kind of worry about the rest through vet minimum contracts and draft picks. It's just the nature of it. The cap is going up. You got to pay the guys that deserve to get paid.
Yeah, it's a good point too. People don't think about that the salary cap, that 1 year during COVID, the salary cap decreased, but we should expect, especially with the new TV deals and with the Sunday ticket now going to YouTube TV, right? There's this income coming in. So we're probably looking at that salary cap increasing, 15, 20 million every year for the next few years. So, there's going to be new players that are going to come in the next free agency and are going to break and be the highest paid players at their position. And it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again. It's just based on the salary cap increasing over time. It's interesting because Jonathan Allen, I was just looking at his stats. He's actually never even had above 10 sacks, where Daron Payne can say that at 11.5. But you're right. I mean, what the Eagles did this year as far as sack numbers was like the first time ever, or like in years and years and years.
Right.
So, it's not realistic to say that all those guys are going to get, 10 sacks each. Now, you would know this better than me. This is where I could see a level of concern. From the outside looking in, not being a Commanders fan, it seems like Ron Rivera is kind of I don't want to say he's on the hot seat, but his seat's warm. But then, like, on top of that, you've got the whole Daniel Snyder owner kind of debacle going on. So I think because of that, that may make Rivera's job safe, at least until that is resolved. Now, if they end up coming in with a new ownership group, maybe, I don't know, possibly next year, maybe this year, but I doubt it. Now we're talking like what happened with the Broncos, even though I think Rivera's been much more successful than what Hackett did in Denver, which was a complete, train wreck.
Right.
But once they, new ownership group came in Denver, you saw they cut bait with Hackett right away, even though he had 1 year, and they brought in a new coach. So with that being said, I know Rivera's been around the block for a long time. Let's say, first off, do you think that Rivera's seat is hot? And then secondly, if it is, or you think it could go, does that concern you? Because this is his defense. This is his, 4-3, ends up, kind of doing some 5-2 type of things. And so they're paying guys like Payne and Allen to perform in his system. You bring in somebody else, if they're more of a 3-4 base defense or something else, now the defense is kind of, in shambles. So what do you think about that?
Sorry, I can't hear you once again. Call came in and ruined everything. Jeez.
Are you back?
Let me see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I can't hear you. But I'm going to go ahead and answer your question, then I'm going to go out and come back in. So
Ron
Rivera is on a super, super hot seat. He's scorching hot, actually. Eric Bieniemy is going to be the guy that saves his job, but he can also be the guy that he loses his job too. Eric Bieniemy gets that title, assistant head coach, for a reason. Now, here's what's going to happen. If Bieniemy is able to get Sam Howell to, get to the playoffs with this offense, right? And let's say that the new ownership group comes in and says, "Hey, we want to go a different route." Ron Rivera's gone. Or if the team is so bad this year and don't make the playoffs, Ron Rivera's gone. So it's either playoffs or bust for Ron Rivera. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no, you almost made it, you didn't make it. If you don't make it, you're gone. That's just kind of what it is. But they also brought in a guy that could potentially take Ron Rivera's job. Now, we talk about this defensive line, and they're playing their, 4-3. Anybody that has a brain cell that's coming in to take over this defense would look and say, okay, these guys are talented. They're talented. Yeah. It's not like, why try to fit a square through a circle hole, right? It's not going to work. So these guys can play. It's up to that next person that's coming in to kind of know how to utilize these guys. The contracts are locked in. You just can't just easily move these guys. And even if you do, make sure you're keeping the right guys that fit your system. It's all about your system. And if you're coming back, are you blowing up the team? Are you starting over? Because Ron Rivera signed a 5-year deal, and we're heading into year 4, and we are the 7-win champions here. 7 wins every year. In a year with 17 games, Ron Rivera found a way to go 500. 8-1. It's nuts. He's an average guy, average coach. But one thing I do love about Ron Rivera, he's an awesome human. He's a great man. He's a leader. But it's like, is the way that he goes about things outdated? So Eric Bieniemy coming in is really going to help them out. I'm going to leave, come back in, and we'll continue the conversation so I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, it was a big deal for the Commanders, when they signed Eric Bieniemy to come in as the offensive coordinator. He's been with the Chiefs for a number of years. He just, for whatever reason, they'll say interviews are the reason why Bieniemy hasn't gotten a job. But now he's going to be the offensive coordinator, assistant coach with the Commanders. And that is an interesting point. I think Bieniemy coming in there, he could take over for Ron Rivera's job. So that'll be interesting. I just wonder, I know a lot of times when you get not only a new coach in there, but a new GM, if that happens, then there's a possibility. It's like, look, whatever happened in the old regime, if we want to rip off the Band-Aid, we're just going to rip off the Band-Aid.
Yep. And
we're going to start having some bad years. You see that happen all the time.
Absolutely.
So that's why I just hopefully Rivera and Bieniemy can get it to the point where you guys can make the playoffs, so that doesn't happen. And like you said, I mean, these guys are good players. It just, my question will be, would a new GM be like, look, I don't want to, like, these guys are great players, but this is too much to allocate to this position. Maybe he doesn't believe in that in his philosophy. And so then he's like, we got to get rid of one of these guys so that we can free up cap space to do something else.
Right. I feel it. But when I look at the Commanders and what they've done, if they keep Ron Rivera and his crew, they know how to draft well. Cameron Curl is one of the best safeties in the entire league, and he was selected in the 7th round. Cole Holcomb.
Yeah, he's been great. He's not a household name, but yeah, he's a good player for you guys. And they like that Percy Butler too. They think that he might slide in as well for this year, right?
Exactly. Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves made the Pro Bowl this year, All Pro, as a safety who couldn't really get on the field, but as a special team ace, undrafted. Who else? There's another one. Man, what's his name?
Safety.
Yeah, safety that started right across from Cameron Curl. Forrest. Derek Forrest. He's another mid-level.
Oh, yeah, Derek Forrest. Yeah. He came out of nowhere this year.
But you know what? Like, to you guys, they're coming out of nowhere. But for us, the fans that really, truly follow, like, you mentioned Percy Butler. So they have all these guys that they're drafting in the middle rounds. And these guys are coming in and becoming gems. Like, even Benjamin St. Juice. A corner he's gonna be a star in this league, and they draft very well. That's why I'm so confident that if they keep Ron Rivera, the team knows how to draft. They're drafting gems left and right, so that's not gonna stop. It's all about asset collection. How do you continue to add assets to continue to replenish your roster? That's what it all boils down to. If you continue to draft this well, it's gonna go great. And then who knows? Maybe it comes down the line where these guys can reconstruct. There's so many different things that they can do. You can kind of move money up, create cap space, as long as you've developed a team that can win. Like the Rams did it until they couldn't do it anymore, right? They went all in. Contracts. And then now they're shedding these contracts because now you're not in that Super Bowl window anymore. You're trying to win, but you're not what you was a few years ago, right? So now they're shedding. So there comes a time when that does happen. But when you are building something special like this, you have to do everything in your power to kind of keep it together, and then you kind of give yourself that 2 to 3 year window and say, hey, we're going for the Super Bowl, not playoff, Super Bowl. And then if it doesn't work, tear it apart. So
I think
build.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I don't think you guys don't have too many free agents that you got to worry about either, right? You've got like Cole Holcomb. You mentioned him. I believe he's a free agent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm trying to think. Is there anybody else of real?
Holcomb, I know Cameron Curl. He's going to be needing an extension soon, but he's a free agent next year. So Cameron Curl is going into his 4th year. Like I said, Curtis Samuel could be expendable. He could be a cap casualty if you need the money. Kendall Fuller could be a guy that's a cap casualty if you need the money. So you got some guys that those are some of the big guys that they're paying that you can kind of get out of. The rest of the team is literally young. Logan Thomas, he's gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was one guy that looked like he could go. Yeah,
he's gone. J.D. McKissick, with that neck injury, he's gone. So they're gonna move and cut some more guys. They like to go young. They like to go cheap. So they do a really good job of building a roster. You pay who you're supposed to pay, and everybody else is getting like these cheap deals. I know they brought in 2 offensive guards last year. Cheap, $5 million a piece. It didn't work. five and I think $3 million. They let go of Flowers and Sheriff, who were getting some big money at the time. So they do a pretty good job of balancing the roster between talent, bargain bin shopping, which is what Ron loves to do. He loves to shop at the dollar store. And if these guys end up hitting, they get that second contract, like the J.D. McKissicks and the Logan Thomas. They love projects, and they like to turn projects into a well-finished product. Sometimes it lasts a year, sometimes it doesn't. You just kind of roll with it. And Heineke, that was another one. A cheap guy. You got him from nowhere. He was in school or working. I think he was studying for his midterms or something crazy. You bring him in, he becomes an NFL starter at that price. So this is what Ron Rivera does, which is why I'm not worried about the rest of the roster. They'll figure it out. I've been trusting this guy for now 3 years, going on 4. He does it every year. Somehow they find these balancing acts to where the money that's being paid and also what's coming in, and these guys actually being solid players. When they do spend the money, like William Jackson III,
yeah,
it was horrible. So don't spend the money and just pay your guys. That's just the way to go.
Yeah, that William Jackson III contract was miserable for them, and he just wasn't a fit. And then they just had to just get rid of him as a sunk cost. That definitely didn't work out for you guys at all. But just looking at their free agents, I think honestly that Cole Holcomb was like one. And then you mentioned Taylor Heineke; he's a free agent, but I feel like maybe it's time for them to move on, from Taylor Heineke. So but they have after that contract with Payne, and you're looking at around 12 to 13 million, I think, in cap space. So it should be interesting to see. They probably aren't going to be big players in free agency unless they do some restructures. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing here with the tampering period starting on Monday.
Here goes another one. Yes, sir, man. So Monday at what time? Is it midnight tonight?
12 o'clock on Monday noon. 12 o'clock at noon on Monday is when the tampering period begins. It's going to be crazy.
I'm not going anywhere from 12 noon to when I get off of work to while I'm driving. I'm going to be getting notifications. So it's going to be fun. Even doing that free agency thread. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but it's going to be fun. At least from 12 to 5, my time is going to be a great time. Just reporting this. And then that day one it's a great day. It's an indication to kind of know the direction of your franchise. If you don't see the Commanders do anything that first day, it's going to be bargain bin shopping once again. If they do go out after a guy, it's like a guy like a Tremaine Edmonds, Orlando Brown. Those are two big names, two big money guys that I think that they could possibly go and target. But I don't know. With the way that our salary cap is set up and what we're trying to do, I really don't see a scenario where we go pay some big names. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
It would really be interesting. I'm excited. And if you don't follow Manny, you can definitely follow Manny on Twitter. And Manny, where else, for those who end up watching this afterwards, where else can they find your great stuff?
Oh, man, appreciate it, man. You can find me on the Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. I have all my content there, from Commanders content to Dynasty to NBA to NFL, fantasy NBA. I mean, you name it, you find it. It's like a buffet table. Grab what you want. And then you guys can also follow me on Twitter at Manny Chokuba.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just recently subscribed myself to Talking with Manny, so I highly recommend you doing so. And we're Front Office Pros. You can follow us at Front Office Pros on Twitter. And hopefully, if you've not, hopefully you can hit that subscribe button, like this video, put some comments below. We'd greatly appreciate it. But Manny, I'll give you the last word. You're the Commanders fan here, so what do you have to say?
Man, I'm excited, man. I think this is going to be a big season coming for us. I'm not expecting too much out of free agency, but hey, the draft is where we eat. The draft is where we're going to come and grab some guys that we like. I'm looking at a corner or offensive tackle in the first round. I'm definitely looking at a tight end. And a surprise free agency move could be Mike Gesicki for the Commanders, because we do know he loves his tight ends. So I'm excited for it. If I don't see a tight end in this first couple days, then we're going to be grabbing one in the draft. Let's get it.
Let's get it. I you know what? I like that Gesicki pairing. We'll have to see, and we will definitely have to react to the news, whatever happens with the Commanders.
Absolutely.
So. All right. Well,
and I will see you on Wednesday, man, on the Dynasty podcast.
Looking forward to it, and thanks for watching. And until next time, everybody.
Absolutely. Peace out.